Hi everybody and welcome to Observing with Webb for January of 2014. I'm actually recording this in my house, a little bit different, but I'm going to see if I can tell you about January and the night sky in about 10 minutes using the video. So anyway, let's first talk about the planets that you can see at different times of the night, and then talk about the events and maybe even get into some constellations. Okay, so what can you actually see? Well, here's what I did. I set it up for January 4th, and it's right about sunset. Okay, and what you can see is Venus. Now, it's going to be tough to see Venus at any time anymore because every night, as you can see, every night it's creeping further and further down, which means, well, pretty much by the 10th, or I think technically by the 8th, you really can't see it. So you might be able to find it, but it is super bright. So take a look right after sunset for Venus. Now, let's go to January 8th, and pretty much all month this is the case. If you flip around and go to and look at the east, okay, and let the night go by just a little bit, by about 5 or 6 p.m., 5:30, 6 p.m., you can see Jupiter. Jupiter is going to be up there right in the middle of Gemini, as you can see. Boop, boop, boop. There you go. Right in the middle of Gemini. And if you take your binoculars, you might actually be able to zoom in and actually see not just Jupiter and its rings, or sorry, its bands, but also Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. They're not as bright on the computer as they are in real life, and there's a whole bunch of moons, but you can't see those. So anyway, Jupiter will be out there in the east, and then what's going to happen is you're going to be able to see Jupiter pretty much all night, because if you take a look, as time goes by, Jupiter rises in the east, and it moves toward the south. Okay? Moves toward the south until right about midnight. It's pretty much as high as it's going to be at midnight in the south. And what's going to happen is then it will start setting in the west by the time morning comes by. Okay? Actually, a little bit more in the northwest. Jupiter sets, and up, there's daylight. Let's rewind a little bit, though. So Jupiter you can see all night long, which is really nice. It's a good time to get your binoculars out. But let me rewind back to about midnight. And about midnight, if you look to the east, you'll see Mars coming up. Okay? Mars comes up right around here, and it rises up. Now it's going to be red. It's going to be a little, not as bright as Jupiter. Jupiter is really easy to find. But Mars will be out there in Virgo. Now, Virgo is not an easy constellation to find because the stars are pretty dim, but it is worth a shot. So go ahead and look at Mars. Oh, and by the way, if you wait until, let's see, the 23rd of January, the moon is going to be right near Mars as well. So that's a good time to see if you can find the moon. Oh, sorry, see if you can find Mars. The moon's easy to find. But then, yeah, if we keep going up, Saturn is up there too. You got to wait until about, let's see, 3 a.m. But if you get up after 3 a.m., you can look to the southeast and find Saturn there as well. So basically what you got going on is Venus in the west just for the very beginning of the month. And then Jupiter crossing the sky throughout the night. You've got Mars and Saturn in the morning. So actually, if you get up around 5 a.m. and you look, Saturn will be in the southeast, Mars will be in the south. Now, the other thing is that Venus actually does a little switcheroo this month. You noticed that Venus was getting closer to the sun as the days went by. But if you look in the morning sky, let's say sunrise, okay, Venus is actually up there now. So it actually switched and became a morning star. Well, I say star, but it's really a planet. And every morning it's a little bit higher and higher. And it's going to be pretty easy to find. In fact, it's pretty good. Let's see, negative 4.6 magnitude. That's really bright. So you should be able to see it in the morning sky, even when the sun is starting to come up and there's a little bit of dawn. But anyway, those are pretty much the planets. Technically, you might be able to catch Mercury in the west at the end of the month. So let's see, we are at the end of the month. Let's look to the west and go to sunset. And yeah, sure enough, there's Mercury. But that's going to be tough to see. You'll need your binoculars out for that one. But anyway, those are the planets. let's talk about the events for the month. So let's go back to the first, which, well, I'm recording this on the 3rd or the 4th. I forget what day it is. But let's find out. Oh, it's the 3rd. But anyway, the first is when there was a new moon, darkest skies. In fact, tonight, the 3rd, I was out shoveling, yay, and saw a nice crescent moon. It made the night go a little bit quicker. Yesterday, there would have been, let's see if we go yesterday. Yesterday, the moon was right near Venus. And then tonight, the moon was a little bit higher, but very, very nice. And if you check out the moon, you'll see the moon gets a little bit, gets a little bit thicker every day. And then on the 7th is when it becomes the first quarter moon. That's when it's visible from visible until midnight. So you can actually see it in the daytime, but it's visible from nighttime until midnight. Then, if you wait another week and you watch right after sunset, let's say around 6:30 p.m., if you wait another week to the 14th, you'll see Jupiter and the moon are very close together. So if you wait till the 14th and look for the moon, Jupiter is going to be that bright object right nearby. Then, the full moon is technically the next night on the 15th, although you probably won't be able to tell much of a difference unless you're really good. Then if you're going to look at the moon, you're going to have to get up or stay up late or get up early. What you got going on next, like we already talked about, you got to wait till the 23rd. Now what you notice is each day the moon is closer to the east, and you got to get up or stay up later in the night to actually see it. And if you wait till the 23rd of January, Mars is actually pretty darn close to the moon, right here. Okay? And yeah, then the next day is actually the 3rd quarter moon. And you'll see that Mars, the moon, and Saturn are pretty much in a nice cool line on the 24th, which is really neat. Because then on the 25th, the moon and Saturn are pretty darn close to each other as well. Off in the southeast, that's after 4 a.m. You got to get up early in the morning to see that. Southeast, 4 a.m. or later. And then moving on, you've got on the 28th and 29th, you're going to have to get up pretty early, or a little bit later than the last one. But if you go to 28th and 29th, you've got Venus and the moon close together. On the 29th, they're still close together. So if you can find them on the 28th and 29th, good for you. You'll have to get up and look around 6:30 in the morning, maybe start at 6 so that you have a good view. But yeah, and then the 30th is when we have another new moon. There's no moon out, beautiful skies. So really not too much going on this month, except Venus switching from evening to morning. But you can see all 5 naked-eye planets at some point. And lastly, let's talk about some constellations. Let's go to January 15th. That's about average. Let's go to sunset. And let's zoom out. If it's sunset, okay, and let's say you're looking pretty much straight up. Let's go past sunset, maybe about 6 o'clock or 6:30 when it's dark. What you'll see, if you look to the west, you'll see Pegasus. Those are the fall constellations, Pegasus and Andromeda. And then you really start seeing the winter constellations. Okay, you've got Orion, Taurus, the V, okay, Jupiter, not Jupiter, Gemini, which has Jupiter right about now. And these are the winter constellations. You'll be able to see them prominent in the east. And then as the night goes on, around midnight, they'll be actually around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, they'll be really high in the sky. Orion is beautiful to look at, especially if you can look here with binoculars, you can see a really cool nebula. If you're up late, you can actually look to the east and find the spring constellations. They're coming in because it's January. They're coming up. Spring's coming. You can see Leo. That's a pretty easy one to find. Next to it is Cancer, but the stars are dimmer, harder to find. And actually, I think that's where I'm going to stop for now, except I do want to show you that if you look at Orion, there are 3 belt stars here, which you can't see in this simulation. But if you go from the left to the right, and follow those stars, you'll find Taurus. And if you go a little bit further, you can't see it here, but there's the Pleiades, which is a beautiful cluster of many hundreds of stars, but you can see about 6 or 7 of them. And then if you follow the belt and go left, you can find Sirius, the brightest star in Canis Major, and the brightest star in the sky. But yeah, that's it. Not too much going on, but I wish you a very clear, dark January and a wonderful new year.